Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. Hey, Bernadette, everybody, like and share, like and share, like and share. Let's talk about the Democrats. The Democrats have erupted in fury. They're saying, Chuck Schumer, your compromise opened the door to Donald Trump and Elon Musk's deconstruction of the government. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, so many programs, our healthcare, everything's on the chopping block. Jobs, people's homes, people's healthcare. You just name it. Because not only are the cuts happening public, in the public economy, they're happening in the private economy as well. So let's talk about this. You know, the common dream, I guess common dreams, they said people will not forget. Fury as Schumer caves to the Trump Musk destruction. Despite loud opposition from constituents, Jake Johnson, who does such great work at Common Dreams, tipping my head off to you. Despite loud opposition from constituents and progressive lawmakers against such a move, Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer took to the Senate floor on Thursday evening to announce he would vote to advance a Republican spending bill that critics say would, quote, sacrifice the needs of working people at the altar of the ultra wealthy. Wow. And on and on and on. People are now calling for him to be primary. Now, that's 4 years away, but people are saying that they will not forget because they're being cut right now, Ronnie Patrice, my sister in the struggle in the Democratic Party. You have been fighting, and it seems like progressives, real progressives in the party, boy, oh boy, we have to fight. We have to fight. We were just together a little more than a month ago, fighting for Dr. James Zogby. We had to fight, and that was interesting. And of course, I'm going to ignore Ariel Gold because she pulled me into this, but I love her. Fellowship of Reconciliation. I'm not reconciled with you yet. Pulling me into that, I said, "What is?" I kept looking at her like, "What am I? Why am I here? What is this? This is so crazy." But I'm glad I was there, and I thank you, Ariel, for really pushing me and pulling me out because Daryl Jones Transformative Justice Coalition, it helped me to see what is really going on and what the state of the party is. It put faces on the DNC. I saw who was there and I saw who was not there. And who we did not see there were more of the Ariels and the Ranias and the Daryls. I mean, grassroots supporters who Reverend Jackson brought in mass in the 80s. People who were on the ground, people who could tell you, hey, this is what's happening in Chicago. This is what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi. This is what's happening in Louisiana. This is what's happening in LA. This is what's happening or not happening in Montana, everywhere, in Puerto Rico. We didn't see that. And somehow or another, Senator Schumer missed the memo. And now people are furious. And I think this time is a little bit different, and I want to ask everyone here, and I urge you all to listen to Daryl Jones and Barbara Arnwine's broadcast on WOL in DC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, because they talk about this and so many issues. Votes do have a consequence, everybody. But you can't talk at people. You can't talk down to people, Rania and Ariel and Daryl. You got to talk to them. And you got to find out what it is that they're doing that's turning people off, because Democrats now have the lowest approval rating that's ever been measured since they've been measuring these things. They're at 29%. They've fallen 20% in 4 years. Why? There are reasons for that. Now, if you read the book War, that really is an insider's account of what was happening in the 2024 campaign. You see that Kamala Harris, you put it so brilliantly, Rania. You said, we have to figure out if she is a captain of our ship or a captive of it. It appears that she was a captive of it. When she called President Biden for some, I guess, a pep talk, he said, no daylight, kid. That is reported. In other words, don't you move 1 inch away from me, even though he had the most unpopular positions on Gaza, on the economy. He needed to leave the race for more reasons than one. And he should have left 2 years before. I've said it. Norman Solomon and Jeff Cohen said it. Progressive Democrats of America said it. I'm not going to back down off of that, everybody, because look at what we've got. And even with that pushback that she got, she almost won. And if you listen to Greg Powell, he said with gerrymandering and voter suppression that we did not look at, she really did get more votes than he did. Well, she came well within 2 percentage points of almost getting the presidency in the popular vote, not with. But see, if they said Greg Palast's information shows, his investigation shows that if the votes had been properly tabulated, she could have won the Electoral College. It's important for us to know all of these pieces because it is in this context that there is so much anger that the Democrats should be listening to because it sure is out here. 900,000 Democrats or people did not vote in New York State in 2024. That lets you know something. So let's talk about this, everybody. I'm gonna start with you, Rania, because I mean you do so much work as an outsider on the inside. I, I think that's a pretty fair way of putting it. I mean, because
I
you
think
carry
so
that,
too.
you carry the outsider spirit in even as you're fighting, fighting, fighting all the time. What did Chuck Schumer do, and why are people so angry?
To put it bluntly and plainly, I think he turned his back on the American people. That's what he did. He turned his back on the American people. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again here. This, to me, goes so far beyond party politics. It goes so far beyond Democrats, Republicans, Independents. He showed us, sure, I am a lifelong Democrat. You've heard me say that over and over again, but it's beyond that. He turned his back on every person in this country who is not the top 1% or the top 0.5% in this country that currently are the only people being looked after by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Everybody else is they're gonna, if they're not already on the chopping block, they're on their way. And he turned his back on all of them. And people were calling his office, and he was hearing from his very own colleagues, and he was hearing from the grassroots, and he was hearing from the grass tops too, and he ignored everyone.
From the grass tops? That was rich. I've not heard that one before.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I do have to say, I think it was actually Dr. Jim Zogby who said the captive captor thing. I just want to make sure it's clear because he's
Okay.
really, really clever and smart, and I don't ever want to take credit for anybody else's brilliance. So I just got to say that out loud. But
Oh, no
um,
question. But you know what he does? He passes it on, and you pass it on to us. It made me.
yeah,
No, but I
yeah,
must say that when you said that to me, because I didn't hear that from him, but
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not surprised by him at all.
maybe I
It
quoted him, but
well, no,
but
no, no, but it made me think
yeah,
because now the reports are beginning to come out,
yeah.
Ronnie and Ariel and Daryl, that was true.
Well, but isn't it amazing? But not amazing is not the right word. Isn't it interesting
Mhm.
that President Biden was not listening to the people, and Vice President Harris was not listening to the people, and Minority Leader Schumer is not listening to the people? Isn't it incredible that that is what's happening? And isn't it incredible that Democrats' popularity is down the tubes? Isn't it incredible that people do not feel seen and heard by the Democratic Party? I don't think, and the thing that's painful to me as a lifelong Democrat, and you've heard me say this, I feel like I get to have my thoughts and opinions because I feel like I helped to build this party. And the reason I identified as a Democrat from as a very young person, even before I was old enough to vote, was because I thought we were the party of humanity, the party of equity, the party of justice, the party of the people. And we've turned into, I'm afraid, not everybody, but a lot of the people who are calling shots into this party of some people, certain people. We don't listen. They're not listening to the folks that are being disproportionately affected by the policies that are not being implemented. When President Biden was running around the country talking, you and I've talked about this a million times, running around the country talking about the strong economy, he was talking about the stock market. The average person in the country is not invested in the stock market. And many of us begged and pleaded, well, like, who are you talking to? Because if you can't afford your groceries and you can't afford your utilities and you can't afford your rent and you're worried about your kid getting sick and not being able to take him to the doctor, you don't give a damn about the stock market. And that mentality, I'm afraid, has just continued. And then you had Chuck Schumer out there talking about, oh, if we don't do this, if the government shuts down, it's going to give Elon Musk and Donald Trump just carte blanche to fire everybody. Look around, buddy. They're doing it. It's happening. Where have you been? And I will tell you, I heard from somebody. I heard it was from a source. We'll call them a source. That Schumer's concern was that Democrats weren't ready for the PR onslaught. That Republicans would blame Democrats for the government shutting down. And that was the concern. And I say, you know what, Senator Schumer, step aside, buddy. You are not prepared. And maybe when you relocate your backbone, then we can have a talk. But if you are not ready for this moment, what are you doing here? Because this is not what we need. We don't need people who are going to just capitulate and roll over and die in this moment when what we need more than anything is leadership.
Well, leadership because these are corporatists. I think we just have to call it what it is. Yeah. I mean, the corporatists are running the party. They said in 1984, if they were not successful in overtaking the party, they called themselves Blue Dogs. That because they were going to counteract it, as they said it in the founding documents of the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council, that if they were not successful in counteracting the effect of Jesse Jackson and the 2.5 million voters he's brought into the party, 2.5 million voters now, we will defect and become Republicans. Now, they didn't. So what they did was they said, okay, they decided not to leave. They decided to send Al Gore to take out Reverend Jackson in 88. Well, Reverend ended up taking out Al Gore. So then they sent Bill Clinton. But the problem was Reverend didn't run in 92. Because that's what it's been about. They have been sending folks. They're on a corporatist mission. And I think we have to just be very honest about that. That is because that's the disconnect. We're not on the same page. Rania? No. You were in Washington, just outside of Washington, a month and some change ago. It's like, do you expect these people to sell? How do you expect them to come and sell the message to the people? Brandon Johnson, I repeat, is looking at a sea of red in Washington at the Chicago City Council meetings. If you don't understand that, if you're not looking at the we have never seen hundreds of thousands of people march in support of Palestinian rights. Are you crazy? We're led by young Jewish kids. Who are these young Jewish kids and Palestinian kids and Black kids and indigenous kids? They look at all of us like we are crazy, because they have said, I am done with all of you. Jonah Karsh was on this show a few months ago. He said, look, and he's the most mannerable, he's the sweetest young man you ever want to meet. He's from If Not Now. He said, look, I don't want the world you all have left us. I'm not fighting for that. I'm not fighting for that. And everybody got silent. And he said, Santita, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I said, sweetheart, you have the space to say whatever you want to say. It's your world now. I got an AARP card. I don't know what else I've got because they're slashing and burning that. But, I think I'm going to have to work until I die. But
I think you bring up such an important point, is like this idea, and you said it at the top, this idea that everything was great before Donald Trump is so gross and wrong. Like, what world were you living in? Not you, obviously, but like, So I get why young people go. The planet was on fire before Donald Trump was in office in 2016. That was happening before.
That part.
Democrats were giving out fossil fuel and fracking permits like candy before Donald Trump. And not all, I will say there are good Democrats who are like committed to saving our planet. But the point being is this idea that like, oh, Donald Trump is the problem. I mean, he is a problem. Let's not be crazy about it. But no, he just pulled the curtain back, right?
On
It was all
everything.
there. It was all there.
On everything.
Yes.
What he's doing is he's revealing that the oligarchs run the place.
Yeah.
Don't think that these people are not at every inauguration and that they're not populating every administration. That is the truth.
Yeah.
He has just pulled back the covers, and you're like, I did not realize all of you were in this bed together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm gonna leave the rest of that metaphor alone. I don't want to go down the road with that because it sounds awful. This is family friendly radio, and we're gonna stay right here. That's right, Ariel, because you are a mama, and so we want your children to be able to hear this. I don't want them to think their Auntie Santita is a nut. But Ariel, come on, what is this? What did you make of this? How do you talk to your children about this?
I was thinking this is like campaigning with Liz Cheney round 2. Oh. Right? The Democrats, the Democratic establishment, because Ronnie is right, there are some good Democrats, but the Democratic Party establishment, so Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, have created an entirely new party, and it's like the old Republican Party that nobody wants anymore at all. And it just goes further and further. So from campaigning with Liz Cheney to be the warmongering party to now like, oh, no, we have to keep the government open. We have to work with them. And my God, when Democrats are in party, the Republicans shut down the government left and right.
Always.
You got to hand it to them. The GOP knows how to fight. They know how to fight. When the Democratic Party is in power in Congress, the GOP fights them at every single turn. But when not just the GOP, but Trump is in power, all three chambers, both chambers of Congress, we got nothing. The only thing we could have is our fight. And instead we've got ping pong.
Here's the paddle.
Rackets with ping pong paddles with little boats on them, and polite dissent and passing the budget. Like, this is all that we've got. And read the tea leaves, read the polling. Like, this plan is not working. This plan did not win us the election. This plan ushered Trump into office. This plan of Liz Cheney, really like round 2 of Liz Cheney, is not working, and yet we just keep doing it. We just keep doing it, and we keep doing it, and the only resistance is out on the streets. So if folks didn't hear as well, so Schumer's book on supposed anti-Semitism, because I'm sure I'm not going to agree with his definition of anti-Semitism in the book, is released tomorrow, and he had a bunch of events, and he has canceled them all right now due to protests, and but protests both over him passing, him voting with the Republicans, and over Mahmoud Khalil, over Gaza, over Palestinian rights. So Jewish Voice for Peace was already in motion to be at the event today, and it has been canceled. So that's what resistance looks like. It looks like shutting stuff down, right? Whether that's the government or it's a vile twist on anti-Semitism that Schumer was going to give, it looks like shutting stuff down. And so we are out here in the streets being like, here's how you do it, Democratic Party. This is what it looks like. And we need them to be doing it in the halls of Congress as well.
But you know what's interesting? Because I was hearing someone talk about Senator Schumer's book that will be coming out. Well, he's starting the tour. He was supposed to be starting the tour today. And this person, whose name I will not call here, who's on a prominent cable network, tried to imply, and certainly the audience was to have inferred, that he was being attacked. These were anti Semitic attacks. I was like, wait, don't do that. Stop. People are losing their jobs, health care, paychecks, houses, or they're being threatened with it. I watch HGTV. Everyone on this show knows that I love HGTV. Yes, I love them. I love them. I love them. And I was watching a show called House Hunters. And what struck me was it's always interesting watching these couples get these houses and the compromises. I want this, I want that, I want that, I want this. This is my budget. This is your budget. And watching the couples having to give up a little something of each of themselves to come up with something greater, like a home, right? Which is great. This couple, they were a young Black couple. They both worked in Washington, and I heard the description of them. They were both, one was a federal contractor, another one had a federal job. And they were so excited because this gentleman said, my family they're all renters. I'm the first person in my family to be an owner. And I almost started to cry because they're both young people. You could see that they were maybe not quite 30 or just past it. And they were so hopeful and so precious. And I said, they have probably lost their jobs. Oh, no. Because they were so young, they didn't have the years in, right? And even if you have the years in, I said, they bought this place and they decided not to get the least expensive place. They got a place that was a little pricier, but they could afford it because they didn't want to commute. They didn't want a 70-mile commute every day to Washington from Baltimore. They said, if we can be in between, that cuts the commute in half. It's cheaper. Even if we take the train, it's just cheaper for us to be here. Those stories have been replicated hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times. The story that the corporate media are not telling, Daryl, is that the government workforce has been shrinking for the past 80 years. 80 years ago, according to Dr. Algernon Austin from the Center for Economic Policy Research, said, look, when Donald Trump was born, which is when my parents were born, we were 4.5% government workers, which I'm not, were 4.5% of the workforce. They were down to 1.5% and shrinking. I mean, this whole bloated workforce is just not true. And here we are. And most of the workforce for the federal government are not in Washington. They are all out here in all throughout America. And that we're not even talking about people who are government adjacent, like Boeing. Much of what they survive on are government contracts. Look, Daryl, you go on because I'm looking at all these rationalizations and justifications, and I don't get it. I don't get it. And now everybody is lit up. They're so angry, and I think they should be.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you, Santita. I think that the anger is justified. Look, here's where I think younger voters and many other voters on the Democratic Party stand. They see a Republican Party that's running roughshod over everything. They've put their faith and trust in the Democratic Party to be that dam, to be that wall, to stand up and say, we're not going to have this, it's going to stop, we're going to fight. And what are they seeing? The most recent thing that they saw came from Senator Chuck Schumer, who simply rolled over. And then after rolling over on it, he then says, well, had I not rolled over, had I not voted with them, then what would have happened was the government would have shut down for 6 to 9 months, and I don't know how much longer. Well, where the Democratic Party is right now, the position has got to be do something, take a stand, push back. Give me the plan. If you're going to vote for it, what is your alternative plan? What is the plan that you're putting in place that we need to know that you got our back, that you're with us, that you're fighting with the people that are being cut? And the answer was crickets. There was nothing. There's nothing that came out of that. What we heard come out of Schumer was a discussion about, well, it would have been shut down for 6 to 9 months, maybe longer. I don't know. There was uncertainty. We still have uncertainty. The uncertainty is still there. So he's not accomplishing anything at that point, and so it becomes really upsetting. Let's take it one step farther, Santita, because there's another level of 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 anger that I have. And it's not just the anger that he is not fighting back against people. He's trying to play by the Queensberry rules with people that are thugs that are going to go out there and do what the world they want to do and try to make the courts stop them and then tell to the courts, I'm going to thumb my nose to you too. Stop me. That that's the rules they're playing by.
Mm-hmm.
Schumer, on the other hand, is doing this Queensberry stuff. Oh, no, no, no. It's your turn to take a strike, and then I'll take my turn. And oh, yeah, that ain't working. That's not where we are today. And it's very upsetting. But there's another piece to it that's the political piece that's also there that I don't think folks are speaking about enough with regards to this continual resolution. Let's understand this clearly. The continual resolution came out of the House of Representatives. It did not have the support of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. They were fighting it in the House of Representatives. The minority leader, Jeffries, was also fighting it in the House of Representatives. The question then became when it went to the Senate, just based on almost 100% of Republican approval, what would the Senate Democrats do? Will they have the back of the House of Representatives Democrats that said, I'm not going to vote for this because it's going to hurt the American people? And what did Senator Schumer do? He turned his back on the House Democrats that were there to have the audacity to stand up for the American people and say, these cuts are wrong. We're not going to stand for it. He turned his back on them too. That's why you have the Nancy Pelosi's that are upset and all the other members of the Democratic Party in the House that are upset. He turned his back on the party at that point. So
No, wait. This is Nancy Pelosi. You can't get any more establishment than I'm just inserting this. This is no progressive. She's from San Francisco. And look, I have mad respect for Speaker Emeritus Pelosi. I do. We don't have the same politics, but I like her a lot, and I respect that she has been the biggest fundraiser for the party. That she has done her job. That was her thing. It's not my thing necessarily, but I respect. But anytime she is saying, wait, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what the other piece is? Please respond, Daryl and Ariel and Rania. She's got to go raise money on that.
Yeah.
And I promise you, she can't do that because we're watching these young people hemorrhage from this party. And wait a minute, and grown folks who used to be stalwarts, who have lost their houses. They've lost their jobs. People who have been comfortable, Ariel, Rania, they're not comfortable anymore. I just saw, I'm seeing them. I'm seeing them come to push on Saturdays now. I'm getting texts and calls from people. Are you all still having push meetings? Yes, we are. 930 50th Street every Saturday, like we've been doing for the past 60 years. But a lot of folks got comfortable. And now we're gonna have to move back into the auditorium. That does not make me feel good. Daryl.
And there's another level that's with that politically as well. And I don't claim to speak for the Speaker Emeritus Pelosi or not, but I agree with her on this point if this is part of her analysis, and that is this. What came out of the House of Representatives with regards to that continuing resolution had zero, zero, zero input from any Democrat out of the House of Representatives. It sets the playbook to say, why should we consider them at all? That's what it sets the playbook to do. So, I think that when Schumer then goes against all of that, saying that I don't need the input of the House of Representatives Democrats, from the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives to vote on this measure. It's a horrible, horrible precedent that it sets. And the question is, does it lay the table for just laying down and rolling over on everything? That's the concern. That's what you're hearing Democrats that are so upset about, that they're not standing, the party's just not standing up. They're not pushing back. And now with the actions of the Senate minority leader, they're saying that you don't even have to consider the House of Representatives, the Democrats in the House of Representatives. We'll vote with the Republicans because it'll just avoid a shutdown. Come on, folks. This is what this upset is. This is where the anger is coming from. People don't feel like they're being represented. They don't feel like their voices are being heard. And that's why you see all these folks that are willing to go to the streets. That's why they're saying, you know what, this is probably the turn that we need. This is probably the pivot that we need to start looking for younger leadership in the Democratic Party to take on these issues, because the old leadership, they're not doing it. They don't get it.
See, I don't mind Bernie. See, they've been, look, the younger people are not, I mean, I think younger people are important. I'm looking for progressive leadership. That's what I'm looking for.
Right.
I don't care what your age is. Anytime you relegated Dennis Kucinich to the fringes, Bernie Sanders you tried to bury. I'm still a Bernie person. I don't care what anybody says. He's still my guy. I can't wait for him to come to Chicago. I'll be mixed up in those tens of thousands of people going out to see him everywhere all across the country. Nobody else is doing that. A few of them, because people are having the town hall meetings. My brothers had 4 consecutive town hall meetings. 13, 14,000 the first one, 15, 16,000 the next one, 17, 18, 19. They continue to grow. And people who are not even in his district. This woman called in, didn't call in, she messaged in. She said, I've lost my job and all 3 of my children have lost their jobs. That's what's happening here. What was Chuck Schumer saving?
I just want to say something, because I think it's important. I always have to catch myself and not assume everybody knows everything, right? That everybody's like in the trenches of all this madness like we are. So one of the things, Daryl, that you mentioned that's so important, like the House side of it, there was nothing to be done in the House, right? Nothing. We've got zero leverage. What we're talking about here is not only Schumer locating his back for the sake of locating, not just about like a protest thing here. It's literally the only leverage that exists.
Yeah.
Because just like Ariel pointed out, Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the White House, and the highest court. You know, we want to go that far too.
They do have that. That was a Freudian slip,
Yeah.
Ariel, but they do have that. They do have the judiciary. They do.
They do. I mean, you could say like some of the lower courts not. That's why I'm specifying the higher courts. But the only leverage that exists is potentially forcing Republicans to the table. Because just like Daryl said, there was exactly zero input, not a comma, not a period, not a preposition, not a single word in that CR came from anywhere except from Republicans. And the only possible way to bring folks to the table to have a negotiation was to force their hands. And Chuck Schumer went, "No, that's too hard." This is what we're talking about here. So we're not even just talking about like, oh, draw a line in the sand just like for the sake of it. No, there is real action here that he decided was too hard, that wasn't worth it. That was, I mean, I don't even know. I have no words for that man. And I always say, like, when I'm out of words, I do words for a living. Something has gone terribly wrong when I have run out of words. But I do think it's important that everybody understands that was really one of the only point of leverage that we had to force Republicans to come to the table and negotiate a clean CR.
What happens now? I mean, Bernadette said, what would happen if the budget was not reached? I mean, what would have happened? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I mean, you
Good.
would have had a shutdown, right, of the
Mhm.
federal government for all but essential services, things that were deemed essential. And and until a budget is reached, you would have that shutdown that's in place,
And that would be the leverage, right?
and that would be the leverage.
See, because my question is, so what next? Because because they're closing the government down. We're in a government shutdown right now. They're shutting down Social Security offices. They're shutting down the IRS. A lot of people are not unhappy about that. That that having been said, it's like that was a joke, everybody. The fact is, there is so much now. People are frightened to death. Have you not been looking at the town hall meetings? The Speaker of the House said, "You know what? Don't have them." Not just because he's an insensitive guy, because I have to tell you, before he became Speaker, there were some things that he was asking for that made some sense to me. I don't know what happened when he became Speaker. Things do happen. Uh, it's not safe now. There are oath keepers and proud boys wandering the halls of the U.S. House of Representatives, y'all. It's amazing to me that corporate media are not talking about that. But when you are up there, these people look very interesting, are just roaming the halls. They're walking up and down the halls. They're oath keepers and they're proud boys. Outside, just outside of these representatives' offices. Help me. Because all they're going to do, the establishment Democrats, they're going to come into the community, Ariel, and they will effectively talk down to the people. And people are sick of that. I can tell you, being in Chicago and looking at what Brandon Johnson, who was an endlessly decent guy, what he's looking at, because he said, you know what? Okay, uh, Governor Abbott, who's guilty of trafficking, because if he wanted to put people back across the border, he doesn't have to dispense them throughout the country. That's what he's doing. People, he's separating families at the border. He's doing all of that. So, okay, my mayor decided to try and be decent. He said, "No, I'm not going to make them pay for what this guy did. That's not right." And people here are saying you're putting these people in the most under-resourced community, a community that has a life expectancy 30 years fewer than the wealthiest white community in Chicago. That's where we are. So I'm not upset about them being upset because they have been betrayed. They have been. Black people in Chicago are northern refugees. We were run out of the South by domestic terrorists. That's the reality. That having been said, people's backs are against the wall. Daryl and Rania and Ariel. And it's like he's come up with nothing. He has said, you know what? Effectively, people are being told that they do not matter. I mean, what am I supposed to say next? How am I supposed to go to people and say, well, I'm a Democrat and this is why you should be Democrat too? What? That's insulting the people. You can't do that. I'm waiting. I need some help. Rania, Ariel, Daryl, somebody say something. Please help me.
For me, I don't have all the answers, and I'm so far from perfect. I don't even, I don't even know. But for me, I still see the people fighting for what I believe
Yeah.
in the Democratic Party. Again, I also am fighting with the people in the Democratic Party. So let me just be clear. I'm not one of those blue no matter who people, as you well know, Santita and
Uh-huh.
Ariel, too. Um, but that's what I know, that's what I see. There's not, to me, a viable alternative in this country. It's not to say there can't be or there never will be. But I haven't seen a real one, and so for me, I'm fighting in that place that I believe I've been sort of helping to build, and with those relationships I've built over the last 25 years,
Sure.
and trying to help elect people that I think will be better and do better, and trying to get those people out who are turning their backs on all of us. So that's where I am. That's not to say that's where everybody is or needs to be. That's not, again, I don't have all the answers. That's just where I am right now. But the reality is, I think there's so many people in so much pain. We're seeing it. We're seeing Republicans yelling at their Republican members of Congress. Y'all saw the advice out of the NRCC was no more town halls for the Republican members. Y'all saw that, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're seeing farmers, most of whom voted for Donald Trump, who are bleeding out essentially because of decisions being made by this administration, including, by the way, the USAID cuts, which are hurting them as well. So we are seeing all of these things. The pain is not just on us. It is hitting people
Everybody.
and families and children all across the country and around the world. And so where I land on all of this is, I've always, you know me, I kind of live in a suitcase, and I sometimes have joked that I'm a citizen of the planet first, but doesn't really feel like a joke anymore.
Yeah.
I really can we center humanity first? Can we forget labels? Can we see each other as human beings first and foremost and try to build something from there?
Well, we're going to have to do that. I mean, OSA said, hey, Ms. Jackson, can you call Cornel West back to come and blab about his failure? Him and Jill are part of the reason we are in this mess. Jim comes out every 4 years to block progress. I disagree.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Every one of let's just be very, very clear. Every single person who voted third party could have voted for Vice President Harris, and she still would have lost. The issue is not the people who voted third party, and everybody needs to hear this and understand it. 19 million people, listen, 19 million people stayed home and did not vote. Okay? So, and I have so many issues with Jill Stein that we're not going to air out here. Dr. West is family to me, so I've got feelings on that too. So, but the issue is not third party. The issue is
No, please don't go on.
Well, but the issue is 19 million people stayed home and didn't vote because Donald Trump, let's just call it what it is, he's a reprehensible human being. And Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris didn't give us anything to vote for.
Well, I think it's reprehensible that Biden jammed Kamala because he was angry that people wanted him out. I think what the stories that are coming out about him, the reports, that makes what he's done is reprehensible.
Absolutely.
He would not give her any daylight.
No daylight, kid. Are you kidding me? Seeing the numbers.
For
poll
2
after
years.
poll after poll after poll after poll. And y'all have heard me say, I am not a person who hangs my hat on a poll. I'm not that person. But 2 years plus showed us consistently where people were. And he said, you toe that line. But then I also go, at some point, it's, Vice President Harris, it was her name at the top of the ticket.
It was, but you know how the game works. She was not in charge of anything. I'm not making excuses, but she was told before she went into this, don't do it. Because Willie Brown understood the game better than anybody. He put her in there. Mm-hmm. That's the reality of it. It doesn't mean that she was not qualified, but there is much more to this than we know. I know because when we got in there, we found out things that we just couldn't even fathom. And so when some other people have been living in this zip code a long time. Yeah. Some people didn't just get here. Some people have known. You back channel Dr. James Zogby. And you say, hey, what do you think? Because he knows this beast. And I don't mean beast in some awful way. I mean, it's just a big... This stuff is big. This is big. Yeah. You need to ask why 19 million people said, I'm sitting this out because there is nothing that you are offering me. You need to ask why it is that people felt that people who, as desperate as they are, felt that what I'm doing doesn't, they felt disempowered. Everybody, hear me when I say this. I've said it before and I want to say it to you clearly right now. Everyone who voted for Donald Trump was not some rabid racist. That is unfair. It is untrue. Many people, because people toggled between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders in 2016. They just wanted someone to go to Washington and fight for them. That is all that they knew. Someone who had the most swagger. And guess what? If you put Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders on the same stage now, Bernie Sanders would tear him apart. But the Democrats pushed Bernie down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
They did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I just also point out another thing from just this last cycle? The number, and she actually went out and talked to people about it. The number of people that voted for AOC and Donald Trump in her district was staggering. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to talk about this too, because it's really easy to sort of like disassociate and just be like, they're all racist, whatever.
Not true.
And it's not true. And this is where I will also lay blame at the feet of the Democrats. We know that Donald Trump lies 500,000 times before breakfast. We know that. But if somebody, and this is an argument I get into with a lot of people that I love and respect, and they're good-hearted people, but they get lost in this. When we know that because we live this, right? We live this life. If somebody is working 3 jobs and having a really hard time making ends meet, and like I said before, like struggling to buy groceries, struggling to pay utilities, worried some, kid's going to get sick, or maybe their kid is sick, or they're rationing their prescription medications because they can't afford those. Do you think that they are sitting by the TV or the radio reading and parsing out every nuance of everything? And no. And is it fair for us to have that expectation? No. And Donald Trump, as big a liar as he is, he spoke to people's pain. He said, I see you and I hear you and you are in pain and I'm going to make it better for you. And it's not your fault. And he lied. We know. But
Ronnie,
he did it.
Ronnie, if somebody else didn't tell the truth, and we found that out in June.
Yup.
Whoa. Yeah, I said it. Now live on it.
So I mean, exactly.
So everybody stop it. Stop, y'all. We have all been dumped on. Stop it. And now, guess what? We have a mess. People are trying to figure out, are you trying to collapse the economy, or had the economy already collapsed? That's what I want to know. Because I know eggs were unaffordable last year this time. Would somebody please, come on, you guys. Our backs have been up we're looking at the law offices of Daryl Jones. I bet you have health insurance. I bet you woke up in a bed this morning. You too, Rania. You too, Ariel. Do you know how many people thought they got that good government job, or they had a good solid job someplace that reliably got these contracts and yada 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 yada? And now, guess what? They have been they are being bullied to leave these jobs. It's against the law to have a hostile work environment. No one's even talking about that. I mean, come on. And then I've got Chuck Schumer trying to rationalize why he did this, and then I'm the bad guy. I need some help here, because they're going to still ask you, Rania. They're still going to ask you, Ariel. They're still going to ask you, Daryl, to go out and sell this. Yeah, they are. And I'm just saying, when I talk to young people who are still angry about Liz Cheney, I try to talk to people who are much younger than I, in their early 20s. And they're looking at me like, are you serious? And then I see what happened with Mahmoud Khalil. Mm-hmm. I mean, so I can't talk about anything in the United States, and no one's defending me. Because Chuck Schumer's not going to defend me because he wants to define anti-Semitism in a way that criminalizes me. If I say, I know Israel has the right to exist. I just know that you cannot exist fighting all of your neighbors. Y'all got to change. And that's all I'm saying. And you want to bury me for that. There's an old African proverb, you cannot buy a house without buying your neighbor. You got to get along with people. You got to. What we're doing now, this is insane. This is not going to work. And you can't sell this to people, Rania, Ariel, Daryl, you can't sell this to anybody. I mean, people saying that they were going to cut checks to AOC Friday night. Look, the last 5 minutes belong to you all. I've ranted enough, and you all about to make me turn my hair upside down, inside out. I am going to look like I've been stuck in a socket in a minute.
But Santita, I think you're 100% on point. And what I see is that where we are right now with the Democratic Party and with the country, we're at a reflecting point. We're at a point it provides the opportunity for our next generation, our Gen Zers, right, our young millennials, to step up and to step in to elected politics. This is the moment that you can sit and complain, you can sit and complain, you can sit and complain, or you can get up, get off the sidewalk, get into the streets and do something about it. And that's what I think we're going to start seeing from our young millennials and our Gen Zs. That's what we are seeing. It's unfathomable that in the House of Representatives, there's one Gen Z that exists, in Matthew Frost out of Florida. That's incredible. It should be like 24, 23% or something along those lines that are there. So, this is an opportunity that exists to correct what's in place. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that you don't have to be a member of Gen Z to have the principles, to have the practice, to have the thought, the philosophy of Gen Z, whether it's a Bernie Sanders or if it's a Maxwell Frost or whoever it is, so long as they're in line with the beliefs, the principles, the inclusiveness, the multiracial democracy that we all fight for. That's what I think this time now permits. 2026 permits the opportunity for some of those folks that are in that line of philosophy to be able to run for office and try to win and start to correct the course of the country that we're on right now. Because Ronnie is 100% correct when we talk about Mahmoud Khalil and the movement that's there and what should be going on, what's happening with the courts. Someone's got to step up and be that dam to say we're going to stop the flow of the water right now in that direction and go in another direction, the direction that we think of is more inclusive. That's what the moment calls for. We recognize the tenseness of the moment we're in. We recognize the wrongness morally of the moment that we're in. The question becomes, will you now step in? Will you leave that 19 million of the biggest block of voters, by the way, are non-voters. That's the biggest block of voters that exist in our country. The question now is, can we start bringing them back in? Can we give them a reason to go to the voting booth? That's the question right now. Can the Democratic Party provide that reason? And right now, with Senator Chuck Schumer, he's not showing that reason to change direction and go to the booth and vote.
I want people to believe in the system, democracy. You can, whatever party you choose, you can do it. I want you to believe in democracy because too many people I know are beginning to give up on the whole American project. That is right. That is what is unsettling to me. Because, they can declare themselves independent like Simone Sanders did. But Simone, when I met her, she was with Bernie. Then she moved to Biden. And so I see her as a political seeker, which is not a bad thing. But that's where she is. And I get it. Okay. There you go. I mean, I say that sincerely because she's young. And, I get it. But that's also in the zeitgeist to say that you are an independent. But are you really? I mean, so I want people to believe in the Republic, and I want them to embrace it, to really to move us toward a democracy. Rania, you opened, and so I'm going to let Ariel close. So, Rania, your words help me, please.
I don't know. I think this is a time that just be real clear, I love seeing the protests at all the Tesla dealerships across the country. Warms my just jaded little heart.
Me too. And the
And
Cybertrucks are
also,
breaking apart. You've seen that
oh
part.
yeah, love it,
I want to.
love every second of it.
Oh,
And also at the same time, I think we're in a moment, and I think we've talked about this before, but I think it's worth repeating. We're in a moment where coming back to deep community organizing is so, so, so important. Coming back into our communities doesn't mean silos. It doesn't mean we're not connected to each other more broadly. It doesn't mean that our collaborations aren't still important. Doesn't mean collective liberation is not still deeply, deeply connected across all of this work. But I do feel like we lost track of that our own communities. All of a sudden, I have to go to the big DC march. I have to go to the big New York march. Why? No, like, let's get into our communities. There's so much work to do there while also still like being attached to each other. So I'm just going to leave it there.
well, that's a whole lot to do.
Mhm.
Ariel Gold. Now, you come out of Code Pink. You know that.
Yeah, so I was thinking back to the last time the government was shut down, which was during Trump's first term, and that's a real difference that we're seeing now between his first term and his and his current term. Is that people were putting up a fight. There was a feel of resistance to what was happening, and I know we're all overwhelmed, but capitulating to this full-on rise of fascism and knowing what's next, because Trump tells us, he tells us what's next. He tells us he's going after birthright citizenship. He tells us that Mahmoud Khalil is only the first of what will be many deportations for freedom of speech and political opinion. We know what is in the cards. And come on, Congress, try. At least try. And we need that as the American people. We need a sense of effort and to inspire all of us and give us a bit of hope. We got a ways to go before 2026. We're not even 100 days into this presidency yet. And the least Schumer could have done, the least the Democrats could have done, is shut down the government. I mean, my God, everything's being defunded anyway, and everyone's being fired anyway. But it gives some leverage, and that's what happened the last time there was a government shutdown, is that the two parties had to come together and do some negotiating because there was some leverage there. And that's why in protest you shut stuff down. That's why you shut down the highway or the airports. That's that idea of shutting down business as usual because there is a crisis and we need some leverage. And yeah, this is a disappointing and scary time. I am all for new leadership in the Senate Democratic Party, and I think that's been actually long overdue.
Amen to that. Everybody, get out here. It's your time. And I will tell you, don't be afraid. Crisis is your opportunity. Get involved. Well, you know what? It's okay to be afraid, but that's where you find your courage. Do you think that Dr. King did not feel afraid at times? I mean, all of these great leaders have had moments where they said, can I do this? Yeah. And then something inside so strong said, yeah, I can and I must. Here I am, send me. Do it. Now is your time. Now is your opportunity to get involved. If you're not registered to vote, please go get registered to vote. Get other people registered to vote. I am not going to tell you what party to be in. If you want to be an independent, I am okay with that. I just need you to be involved in the American project because the American project does not work without you. You got to be involved. You've got to be involved. That's the only way that this works. It requires you to be in it. The consent of the governed, and the governed have to be informed. It's informed consent. You make this thing work. You. And when it doesn't work, it's because we are not involved. I am Santita Jackson on behalf of the Motley Crew, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Much love.